I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. In obedience to God, I began to bless this one individual specifically. I did it every day. The Lord told me to do it every day. And after about 10 days, I woke up one morning and I was blessing them and praying for them. And in an instant of time, my heart turned from bitterness to great compassion for that person. You can't hate a person you're praying for. This session is called Destructive Husbands and Wives. And the word destructive is a strong word, and I don't mean to convey there that, if you fit the descriptions here that you're destructive in the sense that you're trying to be. I'm just talking about the things that we do that have a negative influence on our marriage. With 50% of marriages ending in divorce, there is destructive behavior in those marriages. And again, I'm not necessarily talking about abuse. It could be that, but a lot of times it's just the way we respond to problems, the way we're dealing with the issues of our marriage. They have a destructive influence on the marriage itself, which can either lead to a divorce or just an unhappy marriage, a chronically unhappy marriage. Now, one of the secrets of having a good marriage seminar experience is not listening for your spouse. It's listening for yourself, and not using the ministry of elbows. Did you hear that? And getting into the car afterwards and saying, "Did you hear what he said about you?" That will ruin the entire experience right there. So what I want to encourage you to do, especially in this session, is I want you to listen for yourself. Maybe I'm going to say something about you. Okay, let your spouse listen for themselves. Early in our marriage, I was destructive. Karen and I both were destructive. I say a lot about myself, but what Karen would say about herself was that she had as many problems as I did. I don't agree with that. I think I had more problems than she did. But we both had destructive tendencies coming into our marriage. And what makes these things worse a lot of times is we have some way to justify or rationalize our behavior, like you deserve this. I'm doing this because of the way you're acting. My actions are based on your actions. This is normal. I mean, your expectations are wrong, and there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. You're just too sensitive. So sometimes we justify what we're doing in saying things like that, but when our behavior is destructive, the only answer is to correct it and get it right. Now, I believe there are four basic reasons why people become destructive. Okay, just basic. And the number one is ignorance. We just don't know any better. Hosea 4 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Karen and I got married at 19 years old. I met the pastor who married us the day he married us, and I had not a clue about marriage. Someone mentioned to me in the seminar here during one of the breaks, they said this should be required in every high school, is to teach this information. Don't you agree with that? My gosh. We teach math and science and all those things which are important, but we need to teach people how to succeed in relationships. But the truth is, most people didn't come out of a happy home. In fact, many people came out of a broken home where there was a single parent there, and so they didn't see a marriage, or they saw a failed marriage. Well, how do you succeed when you're trying to draw from ignorance? That's what Karen and I both did. I was completely ignorant. In fact, I had a lot of misinformation and deception. The number one thing now that's going to lead you to success is a teachable spirit. And I'm preaching to the choir because I'm just saying your presence in this seminar means you have a teachable spirit. Now, let me say another thing. It takes a lot to get to a seminar like this. I mean, you had to prepare for it. You had to plan for it. I know you had to say no to other things, and you need to be proud of yourself that you got to this seminar. And I know you have a teachable spirit. So you just tell your friends that don't have a teachable spirit what I said, okay? But I'm going to say something to the pastors now, and because I know we have a lot of pastors watching, we have a lot of pastors in this crowd here, and that is, you need to require any person that you marry, they go through pre-marriage training. That you just tell them that you can use Marriage on the Rock, you can use our materials. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it, but you tell them that you're going to have to go through some training and preparation before I'll marry you. We marry no one in my church. I will marry no one who hasn't gone through pre-marriage training, because you're just cursing them. They're not going to succeed. But just reading a book or watching a set of tapes or something like that dramatically improves their success of marriage. Let me say one other thing. Every couple needs a marriage mentor. is when you get married, just an older couple who's been married for a while, that you have their number just in case something bad happens. And so ignorance is, I believe, the number one reason that so many people are failing today in marriage and are destructive. I've never met a couple who wanted to fail in marriage. I've never met anybody who just wanted to divorce. Is we get married because we want to be happy. But the Bible says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. This area of marriage is something, of course, we're passionate about teaching people, but just simple things that you can teach people can very profoundly affect their life. So here's a commitment I'm asking you to make. Okay, just think about this. You're going to read at least one book on marriage together every year. On finances, on communication, on sex, on intimacy, on dealing with your emotions, that you'll never stop learning. I do not consider myself a marriage expert. I consider myself a marriage student, because I have not arrived and I'm still learning about marriage. And you go through seasons of life. And so maybe I did, get to a place in another season of our lives where, I knew how to deal with that, but now there's other things going on. We're in a different season with aging parents and grandchildren and things like that. And so we're going to be continuing education students in the area of marriage. I'm not going to be ignorant, in other words. I'm going to be teachable and continue to learn. Number two thing that causes people to be destructive is past hurts. Now, I know in another session we talked about the issue of hurts, but let me talk about it again. Three categories of hurts, basic categories of hurts. Parent hurts. I think father pain is some of the worst pain that a person can experience, even if you didn't have a father. It creates a lot of pain that has to be dealt with now, or it'll affect your marriage. I want to say something that I want you to hear me about. It doesn't matter where the pain came from in your past, your spouse will take the worst of it. It doesn't matter who you're mad at from your past, you're going to take it out on your spouse the most. Even if you're not mad at your spouse, they're going to get the worst of it. So there's parent hurts, there's romantic hurts. And those romantic hurts can go back to the first and second grade. It could be, that you had a little boyfriend or girlfriend or something like that broke your heart or something, or a string of bad experiences as a young person. Rejection, betrayal, infidelity, hurtful words, divorce, abandonment, abuse, romantic hurts. And the third is just life hurts, the things that life does to us. Failure, serious illness, injury, financial problems, loss of loved ones, serious emotional or mental problems, things like that. And so when we become destructive, many times we have pain bottled up inside of us and we're not dealing with it properly. And here's what happens to unhealed hurts. First of all, it hinders intimacy. Intimacy means being close on the inside. You can't be intimate with a person that you can't know. Intimacy requires knowledge. It means unhindered access to that individual. I can know your thoughts. I can know your feelings. I can know your dreams. I have unhindered access. That's what makes intimacy. But when you have unhealed hurts inside of you, it means it's going to keep you. It's a breeding ground for fear and shame and all kinds of problems, and it's going to hinder intimacy in your relationship. And it also causes extremes in the way that we deal with other people. If you had prior betrayal, you could be extremely jealous. If someone cheated on you before and you haven't dealt with that, it can cause extreme jealousy. If you had dominance in your past, again, it can either cause extreme passivity or extreme dominance in your present. Verbal abuse can cause extremely low self-esteem. Let me talk about Karen for just a minute. I've never met a person with lower self-esteem than Karen when we met. And it was caused by wounds in her past, deep, deep wounds from her past. When Karen and I met, I think Karen is the most beautiful woman in the world, always have. She's always been gorgeous. Karen thought she was fat and ugly and God couldn't love her. Karen didn't believe that she could be saved. I had to tell Karen constantly, God loves you, and she'd say, I know God loves everybody else, He can't love me. When we met and we were together, of course, I had very high self-esteem, too high of self-esteem. And but Karen literally, she would stand behind me. We would go up to a crowd of people and I'd be introducing Karen and she'd always disappear and I'd reach back, pull her out. She's like spring loaded. I'd let go, she'd go back here again, and literally. And she just thought, I'm fat and ugly. She wasn't fat, she wasn't ugly, and God loved her, but she didn't believe any of that. And it really, it affected our relationship in a bad way for several reasons. One is because, she couldn't give me love in a normal way because she didn't love herself. And the other thing is she couldn't receive love, regardless of how, because I always told Karen how beautiful she was, how much I loved her. She could never accept it. And she was obviously at an extreme, and I want to say something. Psalm 107:20 says that God sent His word to heal them and to deliver them from their destructions. God sent His word to heal them. The word has power on its own. You read other books, the Bible reads you. Okay. I've never known a day in 40 years of being married to Karen that she hasn't woken up and read the Bible. And the Bible healed Karen. The Bible healed Karen. When she started reading the Bible, she would read it. Now, she could believe the condemnation scriptures in Leviticus. But she would read the Psalms or read the book of John or something like that about God's love, and she couldn't believe that. But she read it every day anyway. And I watched the Word of God heal my wife. And the more she got healed, the higher self-esteem she had, and the more natural we could have a relationship where I could say, I love you and you're beautiful, and she could receive that. And that she could give me love in return. And so but she had extreme hurts. I had hurts from my past. I want to say another thing about unhealed hurts. They cause a distortion of reality where we don't see life the way that we really should. When I was growing up, I didn't know how to deal with pain. I just, I didn't know how, and so I just didn't. And there's some things that happened in my past that, that I won't talk about because they, involve other people. Nothing just horrible, but things that, are very private. But let me tell you a silly story, but something that affected me. I was a very large child. I was taller than my second grade teacher. And my friends were like here. I used to walk down in the gutter of the street so my friends would be taller and I wouldn't be such a freak because I felt like a freak. And I had a tooth, a gold tooth. Actually, it's a silver tooth. My tooth got knocked out. My neighbor knocked it out with a slingshot. And they put a tooth on. And when the dentist that put the tooth on, I think he was trying to give me a tooth I'd grow into because it was really big. It was a big silver tooth. My brothers called me Bucky the Silver-Toothed Beaver. That's why they've earned their names. But I went to school one day in the second grade, and I was just this huge child, and I always sit next to the teacher. I don't know why. And I was sitting next to the teacher, and there was a girl in our class in second grade, and she was as big as me. And God love her, and we were both just so big. And so we had this Christmas party where they brought in Cokes. And by the way, during the break, Tom did confess he was the soda pop friend of mine, and he finally came clean on that. But so in this Christmas party, they brought in for all the kids in the class cupcakes and a Coke. And they put cupcakes on every desk and a Coke on every desk, except for me and the large girl next to me. We got New Grape. We didn't get Coke. And I looked on every desk in the room, and of course I already felt like a freak. I had a big silver tooth, and I was, and I looked on every desk of every child and studied those. And I looked at her desk and my desk, and I thought, we're freaks. This is the freak section. And freaks obviously thrive under New Grape. I don't know. It's just something that the parents know that the children don't know. And there was something, and this is what happens when we're kids, is these little messages get implanted in our spirits. And in my spirit, sitting in the second grade, I just thought, you're a freak. You're not normal. There's something wrong with you. Karen, by the way, felt the same about herself. And for the rest of my, young life, I was very, very self-conscious about my appearance. And I felt a freak in every way. And so it was junior high before I ever had anybody my size in my grade. I was the protector of all the young kids because I was so big. And but finally I had guys that were about my size, and that made me feel better, but I still had that scar. Well, when I came into marriage, I acted real macho. I fought a lot growing up. And of course I was everybody's protector, but also my name is Jimmy Dale Evans. My name is Dale Evans. My mother wanted a girl, real bad, because she had the two older brothers of mine. And my mother wanted a girl. My name was Debbie Evans. My mother picked out a girl's name, Debbie Evans. And when I was born, my parents didn't name me. And they just left me unnamed. And finally the hospital called them one day and said, if you don't name this child, his name is officially Baby Boy Evans. So I almost became B.B. Evans. And, well, my mother didn't have a boy's name picked out. She wanted a girl. So she called my dad. He worked in another town close by, and they named me on the telephone. Well, Dale Evans was a country western singer, a big movie star, a woman. Dale Evans was a woman. It's like, Jimmy Dolly Parton. And so that was my name growing up, Dale Evans. So everyone that would hear my name growing up, they'd start laughing. Dale Evans, well, I'd beat him up. I'd beat him up right there, And so I was self-conscious about my appearance. I was self-conscious about my name, being Dale Evans. And so I carried this. And so my response, my feeling was shame. My feeling was I'm ashamed. But my response was, I'll kill you. You don't think I'll kill you? You just try me out. I will kill you. And when I got bigger and the guys started getting bigger around me, I had to use more diplomatic means. But my response to life was carrying, and that was just one of the issues I dealt with, but I had other issues. Well, in our relationship, I just learned to be defensive and macho, but I was hiding pain. I had a tremendous amount of pain in my life. And other things that, like I said, that I won't talk about, but I've dealt with finally. But I had all these things bottled up inside of me. Well, with Karen, I could not be intimate with her. I mean, and she kept asking me, what's going on inside of you? And I just would say, nothing's going on inside of me, Karen. Nothing. Why do you keep asking that? And she was asking because I was so weird, in the way. But to me, I was just the most normal, nice guy in the world, and she just kept pushing my button. So the night we almost broke up is I came home, she said something to me, and I said, get out of the house, I'm sick of this. Now, she had been praying for me, and I read my Bible every morning, but I was a jerk. And that night, she went into the bedroom crying. I told her to get out of the house. I was tired of this stuff, But something was going on inside of me that God knew, but I didn't know, and that was that He was about to heal me. And what happened when Karen was in the bedroom crying is like scales fell off my eyes, literally, like something fell off my eyes. And the next instant, I saw myself as I really was. I mean, I never had seen reality until that moment. And when God just took the blinders off my eyes, I thought, my gosh, am I a mess or what? I am a mess. And I went in and I apologized to Karen. That's when I hung my golf clubs up. That's when I repented to her for the way that I talked to her and all those things. But here, what I realized was this. I've been protecting shame and pain all of my life. And I'm tired of it. And that pain and that shame on the inside of me has ruined every relationship in my life. And it's about to ruin my marriage. And my reality was distorted. I thought Karen was the problem. I thought people were the problem. But I was just, that movie, the Kevin Costner movie, Stands with a Fist. Remember that gal? I Stood with a Fist. What was that movie called? Dances with Wolves. I was just ready for a fight. And vigilant, macho, but devastated on the inside. Here's how to deal with your hurts of your past. You have to be honest. You just have to be honest and say, I'm hurt. It's hard sometimes for men. Sometimes it's hard for women. Women are better at it than men, I think, but what I thought is if I ever show her weakness, the world is going to crumble. When I showed her weakness was when the world came together. My fear kept my hurt in the darkness, and it kept my life distorted and dysfunctional. But when I finally began to admit to Karen, Karen, I'm hurting. And I'm ashamed of this. I'm ashamed. This is when I finally started talking to Karen, that's what she wanted to hear. She knew I was messed up, my gosh, And she had heard some of the things that happened to me when I was growing up. And that's why she kept saying, Jimmy, how did you feel about that? And I would just say, feel what? Karen, I don't know what you're talking about. I remember, I was telling you about my dad not coming to my games, and this is a silly thing. It's not the worst thing. Some of you have had much worse things happen than that. But I remember just looking on the sidelines for my dad, like kids would do. It wasn't there. You just deal with that. You just go on. But it made me feel rejected and frustrated and hurt, but I never dealt with it. I just stuffed it on the inside. I had to get to a place where my fears, the devil is the devil of darkness. Anything in darkness is under his domain. You can't kick the devil off his own property, but you can shine the light and he has to leave. When your shame and pain is in the darkness, it is a breeding ground for the devil, and he'll use it against you, and he'll use it as a headquarters to devastate your relationships. But when you turn the light of God on it and just simply say, this is what happened. You don't say it to everybody, but you say it in the right places. So you have to admit your pain. The second thing, you have to take responsibility for your actions. With Karen, I blamed it on Karen. I blamed it on everybody else, but I had to take responsibility for what I had done. Another thing is forgiveness, and I've talked about forgiveness, so I want to turn this a little different direction. You have to forgive everybody. Forgiveness is the biggest issue of emotional healing, the biggest issue of emotional healing. I had a young man in counseling one time who I liked him. He was a nice young man, but he was an angry guy. And his wife told me, his little fiance told me, she said he beats himself with wrenches when he gets mad. I said, what? She said, yeah, he beats himself with wrenches. And I turned to him, I said, you do that? He said, yeah. I said, what's that about? He said, I don't know. And she said, he puts guys in the hospital playing football. I said, you put guys in the hospital playing football? He said, yeah, a lot. I said, what's that about? He said, I like to hit. I said, but that hard? He said, oh yeah, I like it a lot. I said, who are you mad at? He said, I'm not mad at anybody. I said, yeah, you're mad at somebody. He said, no, I'm not. I said, yeah, you are. And I just started naming names. Are you mad at this person? No. This person? No. I said, your father? He said, oh, I don't know. He said, if I ever see him, I'll kill him. I said, I think we found, I think we just hit pay dirt. And I said, well, tell me about him. He said, I've never met him. He abandoned my mother when she was pregnant with me. I've never seen him, but if I ever see him, I'll kill him. His whole life, he lived with hatred for a man he'd never met. And I said to him, you need to forgive your father. He hung his head and sobbed for 1 hour. 60 minutes. He looked at me. I said, it'll never be over till you forgive him. And we locked eyes, and he just hung his head and sobbed for 60 minutes. His little fiance just watched him. Her eyes were open, and she was crying, but she was shocked. And he looked up after an hour and said, okay. I led him through a prayer of blessing his father. Now listen to me. You say, how do I forgive? Jesus said, bless those who curse you. Pray for those who spitefully use you. I'm not a person who hates, but there's been a couple of people I hated, truly hated. My happy thought was their obituary. I wanted bad things for them. I had a little dungeon in my heart that I crawled down into and tortured them and came back out. And the Lord told me one day about them, I want you to bless them. And I said to the Lord, Lord, if I bless them and you actually listened and you blessed them, then I've got problems with you. And let me say this, it was changing my personality toward Karen. See, I wasn't mad at Karen, I was mad at them, but I was taking it out on Karen. And that's what I'm saying, regardless who you're mad at, it's going to come out on your spouse more than anybody else. Okay. So in obedience to God, I didn't mean it. In obedience to God, I began to bless this one individual specifically. I did it every day. The Lord told me to do it every day. And after about 10 days, I woke up one morning and I was blessing them and praying for them. And in an instant of time, my heart turned from bitterness to great compassion for that person. You can't hate a person you're praying for.